Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sasha Farba. President Nawrocki is expected to decide in due time whether Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy should retain Poland's highest state distinction, the Order of the White Eagle, after receiving the opinion of the award's governing chapter. Now, the controversy has highlighted the continuing sensitivity of historical memory in Polish-Ukrainian relations, even as Europe seeks to maintain unity on support for Ukraine, defense cooperation, and pressure on Russia. Joining us now is Wojciech Przybylski, Editor-in-Chief of Visegrad Insight. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Hello.
So we have this deliberation of this chapter. This has now gone to the president. The president said in due course he will now decide. So what are the scenarios from here? Is this now finished? Will he come back to this? Where do you see this go?
Well, I don't know, and I don't think the president has been playing well his cards in terms of the politics of memory. He comes from the background where dealing with history and the difficult history, including the victimization of the Polish nation, has been his sole authority in throughout his whole professional career. I think he went too far in projecting those kind of experiences to his office. The issue is much more of diplomatic nature. There is a real issue of making sure that we do not build up nationalist and opposing narratives about our common past, including the difficult past. But these steps and such action cannot be. They have to be constructive in a way in the context of the current ongoing military struggle and the future of our relations. At the same time, in order to have the Ukrainian side listen and recognize our perspective, which I definitely think the Ukrainian side should do, that's not the way to go forward with it. So I only hope that the president is taking more time to change his perspective, which originally looked like he's going to take this to the next level and take away exactly the order of merit that we see on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned history there. I just want to ask you, ultimately, just want to get your thoughts on it. Why did the president back down now? He was so pushy about this issue, and now suddenly he's backing away. What do you think was behind that? Was it ultimately then political strategy that he realized? Was it something else?
No, I don't know, and I don't have sources in the presidential palace of how his decision making is going forward. I hope there is good advice and strong analysis coming from the government to the presidential palace, but there are also some experienced people in the presidential palace that would tell that this is not how you can build a constructive and assertive at the same time position of Poland vis-a-vis the question of politics of memory. Now, I think on the Ukrainian side, there is much to be done about it. There is definitely something the Ukrainians, in a moment when there will be a moment for that, will also have to go through the annals of their history and go through the process in which they recognize that part of their history is at least difficult and very sensitive for their neighbors. This is how the European project is being built. And without that, the European project altogether would be in jeopardy. This is what many neighbors have been doing across the European Union. This is how difficult matters of the past have been solved in spirit and in the great objective of getting us all together. So in short, I think Poland also has exactly this process of EU integration at hand, which is much better instrument for demanding Ukraine living up to the question of becoming, fully integrated member in all aspects. That includes also the politics of memory and symbols. And these gestures of orders and merits, that's really childish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think also interesting, as you said, history, but also recent history. I think this, I just want to share with you and our viewers one of these ex-posts from Foreign Minister Sikorski, and I think it also illustrates, and I just want to get your sense of it. And he said, it would be strange if Gerhard Schröder, the former Chancellor of Germany, who takes money from Putin, kept the Order of the White Eagle while the man fighting Putin did not. So just reading that and just get your sense and opinion, do you think that also swayed him a bit, that reality check?
Well, if there is any foresight in the presidential palace, if there is any consideration of the few moves ahead instead of just immediate impulses that look good on TikTok, I think that's what should be driving the presidential decision. In considering that there is more to be lost by his office, but overall by Poland, if we engage in this childish manner of simple and essentially also empty gestures, rather than having much more meaningful process that will lead to results. And the ultimate result, as I said before, is to have the Ukrainian side also integrate in their politics of memory the recognition of the difficult past that connects to these symbols that started the whole process in the first place.
Mm-hmm. That relationship has also evolved. I mean, let's look at the bigger picture here, Ukraine and Poland. I mean, and recently, ever since that full-scale invasion, I mean, they've come closer and closer. I mean, Poland has done so much for Ukraine. Let's just now take what's happened in these last few days. Where is that relationship now because of this? I mean, do you see this as a certain, let's say, something that will not shake the grounds of this relationship? Has this changed the direction? Also looking at that cooperation that you alluded to in Europe, also with E3 and everything else where Poland is really critical. Where is that relationship now as what's happened these last days?
Well, there are two things. One, and there is more material coming up on Visegrad Insight, is a changing posture of Ukraine altogether vis-a-vis Central European partners. We just recorded, and today there is a podcast coming up on exactly this issue where Ukraine is building up a completely different posture vis-a-vis its neighbors because of defense, because of the ability of Ukraine demonstrated on the front lines and much by what they call a long-term sanctions or long-range sanctions, meaning ballistic missiles in production, the drone strikes they carry out already on the critical infrastructure in Moscow, demonstrating they're capable of inflicting pain to the adversaries and therefore also protecting the European security system. Zelensky and the leaders of Ukraine are becoming more and more aware that these are their main cards and perhaps the only cards in fostering their ambition for the European integration, for building relations with neighbors, including Poland, Hungary, and others. And with a number of those, there are all different difficult issues. This posture is changing. Ukraine is going to be much more assertive and this is going to be much more uncomfortable for many of our partners because not to say they do not need us, but they need us in their critical, in certain critical areas less and less. And this is us who are, meaning NATO countries, EU countries, who need Ukraine more and more. And that is changing the whole relation altogether. And there's an upcoming Ukraine Recovery Conference, which I believe where it will be partly manifested. There is going to be a strong component on defense technology that Ukraine has battle tested. Poland has great ambitions in this domain. Cooperation between the two can bring real added value to posturing of both our countries. So what we need there is strong foundations, but also the prospects of future cooperation not degraded by stupid moves of not responsible diplomacy. This is a moment in which there will be hard talks and negotiations, and again, Ukrainians will do that from the position that is not the easiest for Poland, even though Poland has provided so much of critical support. And later on, there will be an Ankara summit where Zelensky is expected at the summit meeting with NATO leaders. And again, he's coming there as someone who can deliver what NATO has been all made for, which is deterrence and pushing back on Russia. And he's coming with real toolbox that we all need, and that positions, again, Ukraine in a completely different space than we have seen and observed in the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Interesting point also, as you said, a more assertive Ukraine. I just want to get more of a sense where that takes us. Assertive in what way? I mean, do you mean in terms of more demands of what they require, more equanimity on the table, also uncomfortable for some of us? So for which allies? And where does the Poland-Ukraine dynamic fit into all of that?
Well, for starters, it's uncomfortable for the whole imagination that Ukraine has to submit to the will of the might by Russia, both its societal resilience, its civilian resilience, and now increasingly their own made military equipment, continuously also supported by the deliveries from the West, and also new weapon systems being tested by the West in the front line of Ukraine, prove that Ukraine has a lot of assets, a lot of advantage vis-a-vis other partners in NATO when dealing with Russia, because nobody has been so successful repelling the Russian aggression towards the West altogether, starting from Ukraine as Ukraine itself. So this is a great asset. And what I meant by increasing assertiveness is also in communication. We have read the letter of Zelenskyy to Mr. Putin. It wasn't really a letter meant for Putin eyes only. This was a letter in which Zelenskyy is setting the parameters, the frame of discussion about the peace process. And he's suggesting that is being done on his terms, because he's able to project kinetic challenge to Russian biggest cities, biggest refineries, ports, and challenging that is undermining Russia's ability to wage the war. Zelenskyy is increasingly positioning himself as the peace breaker, as I said, on his terms. And through the letter, which infuriated Putin, rightly so, I think that was the purpose, he also demonstrated to the partners who are coming to Putin that Putin is not so as strong because Ukraine is much stronger in able to have Russia at least listen to what Ukraine has to say. It doesn't mean that Ukraine is all powerful. It is not. It is taking losses. There is terrible situation also when it comes to the civilian population, as much as difficult situation, number of front lines. But it is able to do what Russians really don't want, which is pushing down the Russian war economy and dealing damage beyond what Russia would be able to and capable of conducting the war further. So that's posturing no NATO ally at the current moment really has, and the strategies also in terms of communication that we have had were unsuccessful. Zelenskyy says what all of us would like.
Yeah. So on that note,
Zelensky's position.
Yeah. On that note, I have to interrupt, unfortunately. An assertive Ukraine, and we'll be covering that more as we develop those threads. So thank you so much for that really interesting conversation. Wojciech Przybylski there, Editor-in-Chief of Visegrad Insight. And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for more. Goodbye.